Good evening, my friends. This is Paul. So, in celebration of the upcoming Super Mario Odyssey, and especially with the release of Breath of the Wild, which was probably an inspiration for the game, seeing as Super Mario Odyssey is also an open world adventure, I'm going to finally get around to reviewing Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii. Now, when Super Mario Galaxy was first released, it had extremely great critical praise. In fact, if I'm doing the math correctly, I believe it's currently the third highest rated game of all time, unless recent games surpassed it. But that was as of a little bit before Breath of the Wild came out that I checked that, because Ocarina of Time was still in the lead back then. So, what exactly made Super Mario Galaxy so groundbreaking? Well, it was primarily because of how epic it was. You know, the setting was outer space, so the sky is the limit is an understatement for this game. The game looked fantastic, and you can't even say for a Wii title. I played this game again, even though I'm still in the era of the Wii U. I don't have a Switch yet, so I still consider myself in the Wii U era. I was looking at that game again on my friend's Wii, and I was like, dang, this looks really good. Now, granted, you might be able to argue within Mario standards, because the game does fall into cartooniness a little too often, but you can't deny this is definitely one of the best looking Wii games out there. Sometimes even beating out a few Wii U games, depending on whether you like HD or not. But apart from graphic style, I would have to say Super Mario Galaxy succeeds in providing a satisfying platforming experience, while still being able to fully take advantage of its space motif. Now, I'm sure a lot of people were worried when they first heard about Super Mario Galaxy, wondering, well, if Mario's in space, that's going to mean some kind of anti-gravity type of antics, and boy does this game have a lot of it. You'll encounter planets where if you try to walk off the edge, you'll just find yourself on the other side of the planet. In most Mario games, that would be a game over. But in Mario Galaxy, it's actually encouraged. Walking upside down and on the walls. What even is a wall or a ceiling? It's all relative in space, right? I mean, yes, Super Mario Galaxy does have occasional levels that do have pitfalls and stuff, but they're few and far between. The majority of the levels, or galaxies as they're called, often involve trying to manipulate gravity to your advantage, and Mario has a much more acrobatic set of moves as opposed to his more offensive lineup in Super Mario 64. So as a result, long jumps, wall kicking, Mario's new spinning maneuver are all highly encouraged, and the game's controls work perfectly. It feels totally intuitive walking on the walls and ceilings, and I think this may have been the inspiration for Mario Kart 8. It really works really well, and you don't have to flip your head upside down just to see yourself on the ceiling. Now, does the game control well elsewhere? Yes. I feel like this is definitely one of the better examples of how pre-Wii Motion Plus Wii games could handle so well. I honestly can't see this game being played with any other controller besides maybe the Joy-Cons, because don't forget, this was during the dawn of the Wii. Like, Mario Galaxy had probably arrived when the Wii was out for a year. But yet, Nintendo made a wise decision and didn't try to overdo everything with the Wii's motion controls. Back in the day, we were speculating, are we going to have to mimic Mario's jumps by flipping the Wii remote? Instead, what Nintendo did was they limited the Wii remote's motion sensing to grabbing star bits from the distance and firing them at enemies, or doing a spin to either attack enemies, activate a switch, extend Mario's jump a little bit, etc. That was about it. Occasionally you'd get to a galaxy that would make better use of Mario's abilities, like grabbing onto a gravity star, flinging Mario from a slingshot, rolling him around on a ball, surfing on a manta ray. All of them worked perfectly. I never had any trouble with the motion controls whatsoever, and I think more Wii games really should try this kind of style. Now, I do think that it's unfortunate that the game tried to implement a two-player mode, but it's actually kind of boring, because all player 2 can do is stun enemies, grab star bits, and fire them. Which may be a detriment if you don't know who you're playing with, because you might need those star bits for something, which, if I haven't mentioned it already, if you gather enough star bits, which are constantly falling everywhere, so you shouldn't have a problem finding them, you'll get an extra life, and you can also use them to feed Lumas, which can create more areas of the galaxy to explore, and sometimes they can create entire new galaxies. Thankfully, they're usually on the short side if you don't feel like being a completionist. Overall, I would say that the game fully embraces the Wii Remote and Nunchuck and does not make you feel like it's a hassle to play with the controllers, but rather it's an extension to Mario's moveset. And for that, I think Super Mario Galaxy just doesn't get enough praise for that effort, and is mostly just praised on its creativity of the level designs. No complaints there. Mario Galaxy has some amazing galaxies that really just boggle the mind with how much they can get away with the whole Mario in outer space feel. You'd think that most of the levels would be boring and just filled with lots of stars and being dark, but they still have a good amount of field levels, deserts, waters. Pretty much everything you'd expect in Super Mario 64 is here. However, one thing that the critics don't really point out that much, and maybe now that the game is almost a decade old this November, maybe it's worth mentioning, but there are some galaxies that are rather dull, or just repeats of what a galaxy has already done. There were quite a few times where I'd go to a galaxy and I'd say, "That's it? You call this a galaxy?" And then I'd never want to replay it again. Whereas other galaxies were so magnificent that I'd keep going to them over and over again. The wishy-washy lack of quality was certainly disappointing, and especially when the galaxy was really short, I almost felt like it was a waste of space just for it to be there. Especially when you get to the grand finale, which I won't spoil it for you, but suffice to say that it was an extremely underwhelming galaxy. It was basically just something that you had already done earlier in the game, but just with a different objective, which was still stupid easy, and it made 100% completion feel like a slap in the face, saying, "Ha ha ha, you went to all that trouble getting all 200 something stars, well guess what? We're gonna give you the biggest letdown in video game history." But on the other hand, the levels that are good are really good. And I think it's a shame that more recent Mario games have not adopted this type of style of just sheer creativity in making levels this masterful. When I play the new Super Mario Bros. Games, I often find myself thinking this is just the same thing over and over again. Mario Galaxy hardly ever fell into that trap. Like I said, some galaxies would even fall under the category of having an entire control scheme built for that galaxy, with only one or two repeats to just say, "Okay, you think you got this mastered? Let's try a harder challenge." Performance-wise, Mario Galaxy is stunning. For what it was able to accomplish for the Wii, there are hardly any loading screens, no frame rate drops that I'm aware of, and the game runs really smoothly. The animations are solid, and the music is absolutely stellar, although I probably don't need to tell you that. Suffice to say, it was so amazing that recent bundles of the Wii would have the Super Mario Galaxy soundtrack packed in with the Wii, not even packing in the game. That's how amazing the soundtrack was. Did I mention it was fully orchestrated and I have sort of a bias toward it anyway? Now, Mario games aren't typically known for having a great story, and this game is no exception, at least with regards to the main story. There's an optional story that you can evolve little by little the more you progress through the main game, revolving around a figure named Rosalina. Now, I like to give minimalistic spoilers on this channel, so I'm not even going to touch on Rosalina's main role. But suffice to say that if she comes across too enigmatic for you at first glance, you have the option to read her backstory at any time you want. It's slightly on the emotional side and feels like it's written for little kids, but it's one of those rare areas in a Mario game where the game actually explains itself. You don't need to think, why am I here? Why is it that this is taking place? How does Bowser get this much power? In Mario Galaxy, pretty much everything has an explanation. And that is definitely something I wish I would see more in this style of games. Hopefully Super Mario Odyssey will take that concept to the next level. As far as replayability-wise, Super Mario Galaxy is easily the type of game that even after you beat it, you can still replay the galaxies at your leisure. The only difference is that you will have a silver star instead of a gold star to collect. Hello everyone, this is the next part of my video. I got a little bit cut off earlier, but I was basically saying that you don't even need to start a new file on Super Mario Galaxy to replay the game, because like its predecessors, Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, and I guess Super Mario 64 DS to a certain extent, you can replay the missions because the levels don't have a point A to point B system. It's more of an objective based. So you can return to the galaxies after you've beaten one objective and try to complete another. The only truly annoying part of the experience is when the prankster comets appear. They show up pretty much totally at random, and they make the galaxy super tough. Now, granted, I like a challenge, seeing as this game is fairly easy by Mario standards, especially for 3D Mario standards. But you have to go out of your way to ask an NPC to move it for you. And I wish there was just the option to ignore it if you just felt like getting on with the game instead of having to leave the galaxy, go to someone and say, hey, can you move this for me? And then go all the way back. Thankfully, they fixed that problem in the sequel, but I still wish they would have done at least a little bit more. Anyway, I think that about wraps up my thoughts on Super Mario Galaxy. Overall, it's a blast to play, and while I do appreciate Super Mario Odyssey branching out into a more non-linear type of experience as opposed to a bunch of planets that you mostly have to go in order based on the objective of the episode, I still think that Mario Galaxy serves as the high point of the linear 3D Mario experience, and definitely at least the type of musical style that I hope is embraced more often. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll stay tuned for Mario Galaxy 2 somewhere around the line. Until then, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.